I'm going to make a classic. It's a chicken and mushroom pie. And instead of using puff pastry or short crust pastry, I'm going to be using Kataifi pastry, which is string pastry. Have a look at this. It looks like tangled hair. But once you add some butter to it and cook it at a high heat in the oven, it becomes so crispy. I love it. Now we're going to start with one onion that I'm going to dice, and we're going to sweat this off in a pan. Now I'm going to be using cooked chicken, so just a barbecue chicken. I've removed the bones from it, the skin, so all we're left with is the meat. This just cuts the time in half, so we don't have to worry about cooking our chicken. And the other half of the onion, I'm going to slice that and then dice. Excellent. Now a good glug of olive oil into a saute pan, and I like the combination of olive oil in this and some butter. So about a tablespoon of olive oil, and what I'll do is just grab this butter and just add a splash. When you're cooking with butter, it is important to add some olive oil so it doesn't burn. In with our onions. And in a chicken and mushroom pie, I love the addition of some speck. It's lightly smoked, it's a little bit fatty and salty. It's fantastic for this. About 200 grams. If you can't find speck, you could use some bacon for this. But what I like about this speck is I can cut it to my liking. So I want this to be about 1 to 2 centimetre thick chunks, so lardons. So we'll just cut that into 1 centimetre slices. Great. And then we'll just line them up and then cut them into lardons. Ideally, you want the speck to be roughly the same size as our chicken. And don't forget, it will cook down in the pan and shrink slightly. All right, in that goes with our onions. And we're just going to allow them to mingle and cook away until some of that fat renders out of that speck, then transforming it and turning it into crispy pieces of speck. Now for our garlic, 2 cloves of garlic, just going to crush and finely chop. Excellent. Now we can add this to our pan. Sage goes really well with speck, chicken and mushrooms, so I'm going to add about 4 or 5 leaves. Look how big these sage leaves are. Other substitutions, thyme, so hard herbs with this works well. Rosemary is another option. We're just going to place them in a pile, roll them up, and then chiffonade this, which just means finely slice. Smells so good. Every time I smell chopped sage, it reminds me of country cooking. Now into the pan, sprinkle that in, get a wooden spoon in there and spread that out so it cooks evenly. Okay, I'm going to keep an eye on that, but we can start with our kataifi. This is a really versatile pastry. Usually you associate it with prawns, so the Greek-style prawns that are wrapped in the pastry, but it also works well as a pie base. So I'm going to place this into a large bowl. Just got a big one over here. And you want to tease it apart. You don't have to be delicate with it at all. So we just want to unfold it and separate it. Look how cool that is. And then you can just tear it apart, just like this. Think of it as knotted hair and you're trying to brush it out. Pull that apart and you can break the strands. Isn't it wonderful? Just love it. Now before we continue on with this, let's have a look at the speck. You can see we've got some good colour. Nice. Now we can add our mushrooms. These are just button mushrooms. I've just brushed them so there's no dirt and then cut them into quarters. We can add them now. Just get a wooden spoon in there and coat it. Now mushrooms are like sponges, so you can add just another splash of olive oil. Excellent. I'm not going to add any salt at this stage because the speck is salty enough, but I will add some freshly cracked pepper and we'll just let them cook down. Now back to our kataifi. I have some melted butter. I'm going to pour the butter over the kataifi. Now we can get our hands back in here and just coat each strand. You could coat this in olive oil, but I find that the butter works much better for kataifi. Okay, it's time to add a thickening agent. So some plain flour. We want about a tablespoon. And we're going to cook that off and then add our stock. So we can add some stock to our mushroom mixture. We want about a cup of stock. Now for some extra flavour, Dijon mustard, about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. And we'll mix in that mustard to dissolve it. And the final spice that I like to add to this is some nutmeg, so a pinch of nutmeg. And you can see that that flour has thickened this mixture up nicely. To make this extra rich, I love the addition of some cream. So a splash of cream, I'd say about 3 or 4 tablespoons worth, and just mix that in. Now we don't need to cook the chicken, so I'm just going to turn the heat off and we'll add our chicken. So in the little pieces, add that. It's about 1 whole chook there. And then coat each piece of chicken in that yummy cream sauce. This needs to cool to room temperature, so let's get on to our pie bases. This is a Texas muffin tin, so it's about 3/4 of a cup capacity. I've buttered it already, and we're going to get small mounds of our kataifi pastry. We're going to place it into our tin and mould it. So I'll continue this process. I'll wait for that chicken to cool down and then we can assemble them. The pie bases are ready and we can start filling them. I'm going to add about 3 or 4 tablespoons of our yummy chicken mixture into the centre, pressing it down so it forms that perfect pie shape. And I have some leftover kataifi. So we used half of the kataifi for the bases and the other half I'm going to top. After I've topped them with the extra kataifi, I will add just a small amount of butter, and then they go into the oven so they go golden brown. They're going to cook for about 25 to 30 minutes. Kataifi pies have come out of the oven and I highly recommend just allowing them to sit for 10 to 15 minutes because they're going to be piping hot. So it's time to plate one up. I'm just going to take this little one, place that onto a plate. Looks so good. I need to try this. Oh, listen to that crunch. That is so good. That is everything you want in a pie, in a chicken pie, and more. Love it.